Hello, I'm Father Robert Spitzer, the president of the Magis Institute, and I'm here today to talk to you about a real problem that we have in our church. We're losing our young people at a very high rate. About 40% of our young people will leave not only the church, but belief in God because of what they describe as a lack of evidence for God, the soul, Jesus, and the church, specifically the Holy Eucharist, from science. We have a solution to this problem. God has not left us bereft of that evidence. The evidence is there, but we have to get it to our students. And I'll just repeat one more time, the consequence of not getting this evidence to the students is that we will probably weaken the faith of many of our students, but more importantly is that about 40% of our students, perhaps not in the homeschool community, but throughout the United States, will leave because of a perceived lack of evidence in these areas. The Magis Institute, in conjunction with Sophia Institute for Teachers, has made a curriculum that can really help to solve this problem, which I'm going to talk about in the talk today. If you just go to sophiateachers.org/Magis, M-A-G-I-S, sophiateachers.org/Magis. If you go to that site, you can actually order this, get information about this program. What it contains are lesson plans, student textbooks, faculty textbooks to teach the students this material. And of course, it's very well laid out. It's very obvious. You do not have to be a scientific expert to deal with this. All you need to do is present this material to the students so that they can understand it on the general level of the student textbook. That will be more than enough to preserve their faith. We have the beta testing to prove that this is what occurs. So again, this is going to be on faith and science. We're going to look at these topics now. First, is there any scientific evidence for God? Yes, there is considerable scientific evidence for God. It comes in three forms. Number one, there's a proof called the Bordelenkien-Guth proof, which actually shows that any expanding universe or even an expanding multiverse would have to have a beginning. So that could include not only a multiverse, but a bouncing universe, just our universe. But basically what this proof shows is that if you have an accelerating system, and every multiverse has to be accelerating. Our universe is an accelerating system. Bouncing universes have an accelerating system, etc. If you have an accelerating system, you must have a beginning. And we'll talk about the significance of that beginning in just a moment. The second big area of evidence for God, for an intelligent creator, is from the evidence of entropy. And entropy is the movement from an orderly physical system to a disordered physical system. It shows you how much the universe, or even a multiverse, would run down if you just let it continue to do its activities and so forth and so on. Every single universe, every multiverse is going to run down until, of course, it's a dead universe or a dead multiverse. Now, when you combine these two kinds of evidence for a beginning, and they are very widely applicable, you can actually show this very definitively because of that wide applicability. What you get is what Alexander Vilenkin, one of the people in what's called the BVG proof, has told us. He said it this way: it is said that a good argument will convince a reasonable person, and that a proof will convince even an unreasonable one. Well, now that the proof is in place, what proof? The BVG proof and the entropy evidence, which is explained in this curriculum on Sophia Institute/Magis. Now that the proof is in place, scientists can no longer hide behind the possibility of a past eternal universe. There is no escape. They must confront the reality of a beginning. Now, you know how significant a beginning is, because if you've got a beginning of our universe, a multiverse, or anything else, you're going to have a beginning of physical reality. Prior to the beginning in physics, physical reality was nothing. And if physical reality was nothing, the only thing it could do is nothing, because the only thing that nothing can do is nothing. Now, if that's the case, then if physical reality was nothing before the beginning, it could not have moved itself from nothing to something, because when it was nothing, it could only do nothing. Therefore, something else, something that's transcending our universe and its space-time, something that's transcending the whole of physical reality, has to move physical reality from nothing to something. This is what we're going to call a creator. Two really good sources of evidence for it. Our kids need to hear it. There's another thing that's very important too, called fine-tuning coincidences. Again, we explain this in our curriculum on the church and science. In our, just again, Sophia, teachers.org/Magis. If you go to that site, you can see these fine-tuning coincidences. I'm just going to give you one example of a fine-tuning coincidence, very, very important. This is called the low entropy of the universe. Again, that's the term I just used, the running down of the universe. Well, when you have super low entropy, this is like really necessary in order for any life form to develop in our universe. We have extraordinarily low entropy in our universe, and this requires huge amounts of fine-tuning. That means that you're going to have, as it were, something like God coming into the universe in order to set the entropy as low as it is set, in order for life forms to develop, for life forms to evolve within the universe. Now, just to let you know, the odds of our having the low entropy that we do in our universe by pure chance at the Big Bang, those odds are 10 raised to the 10 raised to the 123 to 1 against. It's the same odds as a monkey typing the entire corpus of Shakespeare by random tapping of the keys in a single try. I mean, this is not going to happen by accident. This is not going to happen even with a multiverse to explain it, because, of course, the multiverse cannot be infinite, as Stephen Hawking and Thomas Hertog have shown, among others. So the point, then, that we are literally looking at here is that we need this super low entropy in order for life to develop in our universe, yet the odds against it are 10 raised to the 10 raised to the 123 to 1 against the odds of a monkey typing Shakespeare by random tapping of the key in a single try. How did our universe get that low entropy at the Big Bang so that the life that we experience, the spaciousness of our universe that we experience, could develop? There's only two possibilities. Either there's a multiverse with a huge number of bubble universes, which is very unlikely in the light of Stephen Hawking and Thomas Hertog's research, or, on the other hand, God did it. A super intelligent creator did it. Can you prove this? Yes, there's really good evidence for this, and a whole lot of other fine-tuning coincidences as well, which I can't go into today because of the lack of time. However, go, as I said, to sophiateachers.org/Magis. Just go there and take a look at this curriculum. You can read about it in the student textbook, the faculty textbook. All the lesson plans are there. Let's go to a second area that's really important for the kids. It's not just the evidence for God, not just the evidence for an intelligent creator from science. We also need evidence for a soul from science. Yes, according to the same Pew surveys, that are, unfortunately, many of our students, believe it or not, and even in the homeschooling community, there are many students who need this scientific evidence for a soul because they are closet materialists. They may not tell you this, but deep down inside, when they think about it, they think, oh no, everything's just an evolutionary process. There's no such thing as a soul that's going to survive bodily death. And so we also have to have some evidence for this in order to counter the claim that we really do have a soul that will survive bodily death. Well, we present that on 3 different levels. First, we have these peer-reviewed medical studies of near-death experiences. These are very important studies. And in those studies, we can show, that when people die, you have a soul. It's going to emerge from your body. It can see, it can hear, it can think. It has self-consciousness, and it has emotion. And of course, it can move. It feels extended. And it is literally surviving bodily death. And you have true veridical evidence for this by verifying what patients see. Even 81% of blind patients see during their near-death experience. I mean, students look at this and they just are jaw-dropped. And not only is there evidence from this that you have a soul that'll survive bodily death, but that soul will go to another domain. It could be a domain of light and peace and tremendous love, or in the case of 15% of the cases, a domain of darkness, which is really troubling indeed. But in any case, the evidence is really, truly excellent for this. It convinces the students. We also have additional evidence from an area of medicine called terminal lucidity, and another area of medicine called the intelligence of hydrocephalic patients. So we've got quite a bit of evidence for a transphysical soul, which can actually go into a domain with God, this white light of love and peace, or sometimes in 15% of the cases, a dark domain that is troubling indeed. A third area where the students need the same evidence from science. Again, science is the telling mode of doing evidence these days. Philosophy is there, and we cover philosophical proofs for the existence of God. We cover philosophical proofs for the existence of a soul, but we are most concerned with the scientific evidence because that's what's probative and convincing for the students. The third area is Jesus. You just can't take for granted that your students will believe in Jesus after they get out of college. I hate to say this. During college, they are going to be beset with a whole bunch of myths about Jesus not being historical, etc. Well, there's not only great evidence from science for Jesus' historicity, not only great evidence for his passion, exactly as the gospel accounts have recounted it, but there's also great evidence for Jesus' resurrection in glory from the Shroud of Turin. Now, this scientific evidence, again, it's an immense amount of scientific evidence, but it basically shows not only that the man in the shroud underwent a crucifixion that's identical to the one described by Jesus, which is a unique crucifixion in the history of narratives on the crucifixion. This is a unique crucifixion, and not only that, the blood is totally authentic, right? We've got about 42 different tests for the authenticity of the blood, but the resurrection, here's the upshot. In order to produce that image on the shroud, it's the most unique image in the world. There's nothing like it. And the reason is the only way you can produce that image is radiation. And the radiation that's required in order to produce it is between 6 to 8 billion watts of light energy for 1/40 billionth of a second. 6 to 8 billion, that's like 500,000 searchlights worth of light energy emitting from that body for 1/40 billionth of a second. Dead corpses normally do not do this. Obviously, the students are jaw-dropped by this. You don't have to be an expert in this. Let the textbook do the talking. Let the teacher manual do the talking. Do the lesson plans that are there. They've got all the various teaching resources that you need. And of course, we have at the Magis Institute additional resources that you can use for video resources, etc. So all these things are there. Again, go to sophiateachers.org/Magis. There's a fourth area that is really important for scientific evidence for the students, and that concerns the church. And then there are two really important areas where I think we can get right at, can science validate the Catholic Church specifically? The first, of course, as you know, are Marian miracles. We do a very good job analyzing the miracles of Lourdes on a scientific basis. Also the miracle of the sun at Fatima. Also the Guadalupe tilma, which is really quite remarkable. This is, of real import. But the main thing is when you are actually giving scientific evidence for Mary, for Marian apparitions, you're giving scientific evidence for the Catholic Church. What other church has it? So that's the first thing. But today, really important, we need the scientific evidence for the Holy Eucharist, the real presence of Jesus in the Holy Eucharist. Now, this is a very doable thing. So in other words, there are three big, huge Eucharistic miracles. One in Tixla, Mexico, where you actually have not only real living heart tissue with basically white blood cells actually enveloping lipids in the blood, you've got an actual flow of blood out of that host from the interior to the exterior, and it's proven by a whole series of tests that have been documented by Dr. Castañón Gomez and others. And then there's a second Eucharistic miracle at Cikolka, Poland. This one is truly great because, again, it's almost as if the flesh on this Eucharistic host is growing out of the substance of the host. So you have this intertwined, integrated substance of the host with the substance of living heart tissue. They're integrated so closely that there's only a few micron separation between the fibrils in the heart tissue and the fibers and molecular structures of the substance of the host. I mean, this is so remarkable and so integrated. NASA technology cannot produce this, yet it's right there growing out of that host in Cikolka and confirmed by electron microscope testing. We have another, again, a Eucharistic host, miraculous one in Buenos Aires, but these hosts come from 2006, 2008, and 1996 respectively. They have been vastly scientifically tested. They really do show, and they're really excellent manifestations of scientific evidence for the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist just in time. What is the point that we're trying to make at the Magis Institute and Sophia Institute? We're trying to say that the evidence from science is there to accompany the philosophical evidence, to accompany the historical evidence, and to, of course, accompany the theological and scriptural evidence. So all of it is there, but the science is what enables the students to maintain their faith in the midst of a really sometimes hostile collegiate environment, sometimes a hostile graduate school environment, or even job environment where the students' faith is put to the quote-unquote scientific test. We can provide this. We have got great beta tests that show that by doing this curriculum, you can actually help the students not only maintain their faith, but if they're already on the verge of losing their faith, it turns them around instantly. 97% of our students claim that they actually got a true boost for their faith and were able much more not only to defend the faith to themselves by rational evidence and scientific evidence, but for other people as well. So we just conclude today by just simply giving you some resources here. The first resource is the one I've been mentioning throughout. This is our so-called Apologetics 1 course. It's called The Church and Science in the Modern World. So you want to take a look at that from SophiaInstituteforTeachers.org/Magis. The Magis Institute also has a series of great resources. So if you go to crediblecatholic.com, and then simply click on the 7 essential modules, all the topics I talked about, there will be videos right there free of charge for you to use. If you want the course with the lesson plans, then you have to go to SophiaTeachers.org/Magis. Well, thanks for your kind attention. It's really an exciting world out there. God has not left us bereft of scientific and reasonable evidence. There's more scientific and reasonable evidence today for God, the soul, Jesus, and the church than ever before. And of course, it's all available through Sophia Institute or through the Magis Institute, and so grateful for your kind attention today.